recording. All right. I think this is a good picture when you think about stress. I'm sure you can come up with other pictures, but just the rope unraveling strand by strand until it completely breaks. And I think in our lives we experience this pictorial visualization here, strand by strand in our life, and we think we can't take one more thing. And those are typical responses when we are under stress. So let's do some introduction here. And these are very fascinating and disturbing facts, in my opinion. In a Reader's Digest report in their book of facts, the number of aspirins, did you get this? The number of aspirins taken by Americans each year, and this is a current date, 29 million people. Now I might have that wrong. Hang on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 zeros. What is that, a million or a billion? 9 zeros. And then
I think a billion.
Okay.
Or a billion. Yeah. It's
Okay.
a billion.
All right. Well, boy, isn't that startling? 29 billion people per year take aspirins. Now, I know that there is a percentage of us who take aspirins for our hearts, baby aspirin, okay? But I think the majority of these 29 billion people are those who are trying to rid themselves of the discomfort of stress. The Harvard Business Review said that between 75 and 90% of people who go to the doctor's office and have visits are stress-related symptoms. 75 to 90% of people who make an appointment to see their primary care physician relate symptoms in reference to stress. And then the Fuller Institute of Church Growth. And I find this startling. And I think these numbers could be increased because this is about a 3 to 5 year old reporting. And they did a survey, they did some investigation, and this is the summary report on pastoral stress. 40% of pastors surveyed reported a major clash with a church member at least once a month. 50% felt ill-suited to face the rigors of the pastorate. 70% had a lower self-image than when they first began ministry. 80% said that ministry had influenced their family negatively, and 90% felt inadequately trained for ministry. These are pretty startling facts from a survey, and I admit that it's probably about 5 years old, and I cannot imagine these numbers going down, okay? I can only imagine them being stable or maybe even increasing. But there's one other thing that I would like to add to this survey, and it's the perspective, excuse me, it's the perspective that church members have on their pastor. The perspective that they have on their pastor. The pastor always needs to be available. The pastor always needs to be cheerful. The pastor always needs to be wise. The pastor always. Please don't forget that your pastor is flesh and blood, and whatever stress that you are going through and that you expect him to guide you through biblically, he has experienced or is going through himself. The pastoral congregant relationship is a two-way street. It doesn't flow from the top down. It is mutual, side by side, walking in step for maturity and growth. Now, I hear people say the following, and as I read these, ask yourself if you have ever said any of these things. If one more thing is added to my plate, I'll just scream. I don't think I can handle one more problem. Some of you guys are smiling. Remember, I see you. Your camera's on. I need a vacation from my job. It creates so much stress for me. I'm so stressed right now. I just feel I can't cope anymore. I think all of us who have tuned in and those who will listen later on can admit to saying or thinking at least one or two of these things. Now, let's talk about some axioms on stress. An axiom is something that is true. So the first thing is, and we need to embrace this, and you might say, this is very simple, Rick. I could be, watching the NBA finals with a bowl of ice cream. Well, you could be, but that might create stress for you as well, depending on who you're rooting for. Everyone has stress. There is not a person that has ever lived, that is living now, or that will live in the future that will not experience stress. Now, can you think why that statement is so true? Because of the three enemies, in particular for the Christian, the three enemies of the Christian life: the world, the flesh, and the devil. And when a Christian strives to live a holy life, walking in cadence with the Spirit, seeking to remain in the light as He is in the light, 1 John, there is going to be stress. Have you ever read the autobiography of the Apostle Paul? The Holy Spirit recorded his biography at least 3 times in the book of Acts. He relates the stress that he is under to the Corinthians, talking about stress from his countrymen, talking about stress from being hungry, not having enough money, not knowing exactly what's going to happen, stress upon stress. And then he says, besides all that, I've got the stresses of the church. Everyone has stress. And I was thinking about this afternoon. Some people say, I don't have stress, I give stress. Some people say that. But if you stop and think about that, the person who says, I don't have stress, I give stress, is stress personified. They have stress. They are just dealing with it in an inappropriate way. And by the way, stress affects other people, not only you, but it affects other people as well. And everyone must deal with stress. Everybody has to deal with stress. And one only has to take a look in your church, in your neighborhood, in your family dynamics. And if you want to broaden it out in our world, the creative ways or the destructive ways people deal with stress. There's substance abuse, there is immorality, there is isms, alcoholism, gambling, drug addiction. There are a wide variety of ways that people deal with stress. Some become workaholics. Some withdraw and they go into themselves and they think that if I just cut everybody else out of my life, my stress will be relieved. Well, maybe Those sources of stress, other people, might be eliminated out of your life, but guess what? You got to live with yourself and all of the thoughts and the memories from those hurtful situations that you have not processed biblically. Everyone has got to deal with stress. And then stress is a part of everyday life. Stress is a part of everyday life. Let me give you some things I jotted down that can be stressors. Um, there's no escaping stress. For example, you're waiting in traffic and you are 15 minutes late. Now, that will never happen in Wyalusing, Pennsylvania, because there is no traffic. We have what? We have two stoplights, two traffic lights in this borough, okay? And most of the time they are green. But you're waiting on something and you're late. You're trying to get somewhere. You're caught by another long, slow moving freight train. Again, we don't have freight trains here in Wyalusing. You know what we've got? We've got these cotton picking things called 18 wheelers that come flying down these mountain roads that are 2-lane. And boy, oh boy, you better be able to spot them coming down the road and be able to move over. That can create stress. Is that guy going to make it around the curve? Is he going to stay on his side of the road? Sitting in the doctor's office or waiting at the dentist's office. That can create stress. And especially for some of us who don't particularly like these vocations of life. I'm thankful that God has gifted men and women to be doctors and dentists. That doesn't mean I have to run around, hug them, and sing kumbaya. Okay? A traffic ticket can create stress. I remember when I first got here, I think I told you guys this one Sunday morning. I was going through a little horse town called Meshoppin, and people had warned me about the speed limit, and you better do the speed limit. They told me horror stories. If it's 35, if you go 36 or 37, they're gonna tag you. Well, here I come back from Tunkhannock. Before I couldn't say that word. Tunkhannock is what I used to say. I couldn't pronounce it. Tunkhannock. After 3 years, I finally got it straight. And I was coming back from Tunkhannock, and sure enough, bam, I got tagged. And she was very nice about it. She still gave me the ticket, and it still cost me over $150 to pay the stupid thing. Stress. A jammed copy machine while others are waiting. Or how about this? Your modem doesn't work and you're trying to connect to the internet. I had that for 2 days this past week. Slow dial-up connections. Oh, here's one. An insufficient funds notice. IFN in the mail. Or you might get an alert on your phone. Balance has fallen under $25. They could probably keep that permanently attached to my phone. A headache or a toothache can create stress. A sick child or an aging parent. You know what's creating stress for Carl Howell, those of you who know him? He's imprisoned over at the Towanda, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't want to call it a nursing home, senior living care. He's locked up, tighter than a drum. I called him this afternoon. At least he can get out of his room and go down and have meals together, but no one can go in. No, he can come out, but he's got to make sure he notifies people when he comes out because he can get locked out and they wander off. And besides, it's too cold for us to visit outside. Inconsiderate neighbors with their loud music. Now, when I put this together, this was in Chicago. You need to understand that that's a problem in Chicago. Okay, right, Carolyn Davis? That's a problem in Chicago. Walking home late at night in a changing neighborhood. An angry person on the other end of the telephone line, or let's expand that. Here you call in for a issue, phone issue, computer issue, whatever it might be, and you get that pre-recording. Your call is important to us. Please select from the following menu, which has changed. 1 for this, 2 for that. I know one company that goes all the way up to 9, all the way up to 9. And so you push a button, and you get you get you get routed through this entire company system before you can talk to somebody, and then you better have some good hearing. Loss of job or measure of health. Our seniors go through this. Selling or buying a home can be very, very stressful. Geographical move. A promotion or being passed over for someone younger with a college degree. You've got 18 years of seniority. Here comes this whippersnapper fresh out of college, and he's got some type of business degree, and here he is telling you what to do and has no idea about the day-to-day operation. Paying for 2 children in college can be a stressful situation, even one child in college. Home repairs, who do you trust? Who do you contact? Who do you believe? A poor job performance review can create stress in a person's life. And you know what? Even on vacation, there can be stress. Even on vacation, you reserve a particular campsite, and when you pull into the campgrounds, I'm sorry, that campsite has been taken. You're over there in the corn patch. No, I know you had full hookups, but all we can make available to you is water and sewer, no electric, or electric and water and no sewer. It can be stressful. Or you can pull into the campground, have your favorite spot, get everything hooked up, and then, the party boys come in, and what you hope to be a very quiet time, you might as well not have left your neighborhood. You might as well stay there, not have paid the money to go ahead and do that. And the list can go on and on, can it? It can go on and on. Stress is inevitable. That word means it's going to happen. There's no way to get around it. There's no way to avoid it. It will take place. And you know what, beloved? You and I cannot always predict when stress is going to come, how it's going to come, and by what means it comes. But we shouldn't be shocked when stress comes. You think of the words of James and the words of Peter to these young Christians that were under persecution and stressful situations. And both James and Peter, and I summarize, told these dear saints, don't be surprised when fiery trials come into your life. Even Jesus told his disciples that in this world you're going to have tribulation. In this world you're going to have stress. Don't be surprised by it. And then stress can be external. Now we're going to be getting into some very important areas here in the weeks to come. A lot of people think that stress is just on the outside, and if I can correct my outside, I'll be free from stress. So my job is creating stress. I'll look for another job. My neighborhood is changing so much, it's creating stress. I don't know whether my car is going to be vandalized or not. I'm going to sell my house and move to a different location. Stress can be external. There's no doubt about it, but stress can also be internal. It can be internal. It can be those things that are stirring on the inside of me. Nobody else can see, nobody else knows but you and but me. And I believe that in part, some of this stress that is internal, listen to me now, is unresolved conflict, unresolved issues. And it seems hopeless that this issue can be resolved. Nobody seems to be interested in trying to resolve it. And we internalize that. And we all have a wonderful way of being dishonest in church. Did you get that? How many of us, even today in church, were dishonest? When somebody asked you, "Hey, how you doing?" What is the typical response that we say when we're in church and someone says, "Hey, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm just wonderful. I'm just doing fine. I'm doing better than I deserve." And inside, you are tore up. You have internal spiritual bleeding. So that raises a whole different question here, guys. Why is it that we cannot be honest in church? Why is it when someone asks us, "Hey, how you doing?" that we don't be honest? Are we afraid to share with that other person? Do we not trust them to be a prayer warrior for us? Do we not believe that they're going to hold the confidence of the things that I share? Are we concerned that they'll look on us differently because I have this problem I'm struggling with? These are all wrong perspectives on the body of Christ that you and I are a member of. The question is not whether our lives will be touched by stress, guys, but what we do when stress touches our lives. You know, sometimes we develop a romantic perception of Bible characters as if they lived a stress-free life. That somehow, if we could only go back to the good old days where we heard directly from God, life was so much simpler. Stress would not be a problem. Really? I challenge you to think about 25 Bible characters and do a survey of their life and see if you can spot the stresses that they were under. Was Adam and Eve under stress? They certainly were. What about Cain after he murdered his brother and the rejection by God? What about Noah being the only righteous man on planet Earth? What about Abraham having to leave family, home, and country? What about Sarah, who was a doubter initially when it came down to getting pregnant with the promised child? Oh, Moses had stress. 2.5 million times over, he had stress. And then Joshua had stress. Did Samuel have stress, the prophet Samuel? What about King David? Solomon had a whole bunch of stress. You can read about his stress in the book of Ecclesiastes. And you can see how someone deals with stress the wrong way. He tried one thing after another, one thing after another. And at the end of every one of those ventures he tried, you know what he recorded, don't you? This is vanity. This is chasing after wind. Kings and the prophets had stress, those who were righteous. Jesus and the disciples had stress. Paul, Timothy, and the Apostle John. All of these people had to deal with stress. I don't think you can find one person in the Bible that did not have stress that they had to deal with. And you know what, beloved? That's the key right there that we are going to begin to look at in the weeks to come. How do we deal with stress? How do we disarm stress so it doesn't have power in our lives. And stress is a sinful response to a situation where either we don't trust God or we don't believe that God can step in and do something about the situation. Internal stress is something I cause. External stress is something I experience because I'm not in tune with God and what He is trying to do through that situation. We're going to have a powerful time going through this material, and I trust that you will be encouraged by it as we process through it. And if you have any questions, as soon as I stop recording here, we can take them. We're going to stop